Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365. My name is Steven Haggerty, and today I'm joined by the founder and CEO of Sweetshop, Mr. Angus Imlach. How are you, Sir Angus?
I'm good, mate. I'm really good, thank you. A bit cold, I'm enjoying this weather and the second part of this lockdown, but I'm good.
I mean, I
Surviving.
did say that you look like you're in a lovely room, but it also looks pretty empty,
Yeah,
and you're wearing a jacket inside, which immediately makes me think that fire behind you needs to be on. Come on, man.
that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, going to go for the homely little touch and try and figure out the fire, but
You
I'm not
should have had the fire on, had a pipe, and
brave.
then with your dog on your lap, just stroking your dog. It would have been the perfect setting. But alas, you missed a great opportunity there. Come on, man. I
Yeah,
expect better.
I missed the
Welcome,
trick.
welcome to the show anyway. And I guess the first question is if you can give just an overview of what Sweetshop is, because I guess if people don't know you, they're probably obviously going to assume it is a sweet shop.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So Sweetshop is a 360 digital marketing agency. We call ourselves an integrated agency. I guess that's because we're a little bit greedy and we get a bit more excited by doing lots of things as opposed to focusing down on one niche, despite every single bit of advice that's ever been given to me. I found it
I'm the
more
same.
exciting. Yeah, I found it more exciting to go and start an agency where we could work on different types of projects, different types of clients. So we do everything ranging from influencer marketing to programmatic advertising, creative branding, you name it, and we'll give it a shot.
Love it. And you were previously with Crowdmix. So talk to me about the transition from Crowdmix into founding and coming up with the idea and actually just jumping into Sweetshop, because you're just over 3 years old now. So I mean that's quite the journey already.
Yeah, wow. So Crowdmix, what a journey. I think that
I
was
feel like you're gonna get emotional.
yeah, I am. Like it was amazing. I think I was one of the first employees, and I kind of saw it from a tiny idea all the way through to this great big company. We had 170 people kind of in offices in the UK and also over in the States, and it was amazing. When it all kind of went a bit funky,
Came crashing down.
it came absolutely heaving down, didn't it? Yeah. I was actually out in the States at the time. So they moved me over from London to set up an office with Rob Wells over in the States. So I built a team over there. And then all of a sudden, our burn rate was just through the roof. And yeah, so the whole company got shut down. And when it got shut down, I was doing some research for them at the time. There was one article and it was talking about, it was a Harvard journal, and it was talking about social media being like candy for the brain. And I particularly just loved this one sentence. I would just love this idea of social media being like candy for the brain. It was talking about the little
It's
kicks of
so accurate
dopamine
as
that
well,
you
isn't it?
get from when you're searching your Instagram. Yeah, exactly. And I just couldn't help but find it hugely ironic because one of our strategic investors was Nick Candy. And I loved Nick Candy. I think he was great. He was good fun. And when it all went under, I just became obsessed with this idea of social candy. And what I was doing for them at the time had been building an influencer network. So it was specifically
Yeah.
a micro influencer network. So I'll never forget it. It was really early on in the entire company's process. And one of the founders, Gareth, said to me, right, we're going to go out, we're going to try and sign as many artists up to this platform, pre kind of product, pre anything, to build this network. And I was just like, wow, how are we going to convince them? I'm like a salesman knocking on people's doors. I haven't actually got any tools or equipment. It was just like, okay, cool, we've got an idea. Anyway, we ended up building this micro influencer network, which was amazing. We onboarded about 4,500 micro influencers who are like fans, super fans. So, for
Nice.
example, One Direction had a super fan called 1D Nation.
Also
And
good.
we went around and signed all these people up because we realized that instead of going straight to One Direction and like paying them an enormous amount of money to promote this new app, we could go out and we could actually reach their fan base by building this collective of micro influencers up, which was brilliant. It was awesome. It was kind of, I think we're probably one of the earliest sort of micro influencer networks to come around, to be honest with you. So fast forward 3 years later of crazy ups and downs and everything in between at Crowdmix. When the news came out that we were going to be shutting things down, I was still obsessed with this area, this micro influencer marketing. And I was getting a lot of people contacting me, offering me jobs to do this, that, and the other to do with, I was getting all sorts of crazy opportunities. If someone mentioned the word influencer, oh, we'll ring Angus.
Wow. That must be a weird position for you though, to just I guess weird, but also it must have been a confusing time for you to kind of know what to do next.
Yeah, it totally was. And in all fairness, it was, I had some really good people around me. I had one of our advisors was Chris Deering, who was one of the fathers of PlayStation. And he was one of our advisors at Crowdmix at the time. And I went for a lunch with him and talked to him about what was going on. I've been offered a couple of exciting opportunities that I've never been presented with a golden hello before. And I was like, oh, this sounds exciting. It's a golden hello. And I really wanted to take them, but I just didn't know if it was going to be quite right for me. After having spent 3 years in a startup, and Chris said, just go and do it for yourself. Just go and start something yourself.
You bite the bullet.
Yeah, it's like, just go and I knew lots of smart people. I knew lots of talent. I knew lots of influencers. I knew lots of brands. And it was just like, look, just go and do it for yourself. So I thought, you know what? Let's give it a shot. What's the worst that can happen?
And then from there, Sweetshop was born.
Yeah, slowly but surely, we just started adding things onto it. So originally, I was managing a couple of influencers at the time, and I approached Dave, Ross, and Jamie, three of the other co-founders. And Ross and Jamie in particular had experience from a management background. So Ross had worked with some of the coolest DJs on the planet, and had a great experience in managing and really understood subcultures. Super cool, super switched on, knows how to make things cool. And then you had Jay, on the other hand, who was Mr. Major Record Label, always turned up wearing a blazer, looked very sharp, very dapper.
Interesting mix.
Yeah, it was like yin and yang. It was brilliant. Jay had his huge Major Record Label background, and Ross together, they complement each other so well. And then Dave had a PR company. And I said to Dave, I was just like, look, if we're looking after these influencers and this talent, they've never had any press, really. Like, we're talking like 3-4 years ago, really. No one had got dedicated PR teams around them if they were in the world of YouTube or influencer at that point. So I said, Dave, like, you're a cool kid on the block, also electronic music background, knows how to make things cool. I said, look, if these guys are getting hundreds of million views organically, imagine what we could do if we spice things up with a little bit of PR on top of it. And so that was it. We all got together and then started connecting brands and influencers originally. And then we realized quite quickly that lots of brands didn't really have answers for this equation. They didn't really understand the whole world of influencer marketing too well a few years back. And
it was just a shiny object, I guess, at that time.
It was a shiny object that people thought equated to instant sales by working with an influencer. I hate that word, but it is what it is. But yeah, I remember we started working with a couple of brands early on. We started working with Less, and I remember when we worked with Less, it was just very evident that they wanted a lot more than influencer marketing. And we realized there might be a gap in the market to kind of just come in, approach it as influencer marketing. But then instead of stopping where most brands expect you to, they expect you to find an influencer and to pay an influencer to do a shout out. And instead of doing that, we were like, well, actually, that's just the first part of it. We've got to find the influencer. We've then got to create the content. We've then got to make sure we're seeding the content. We've then got to make sure that we're doing influencer marketing around the content, PR around the content, paid advertising around the content, and just making sure that it gets full bang.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we saw it as an exciting opportunity to go and seize it, really.
Which is why you're so set on that 360 environment of being able to merge the jigsaws together and create this amazing outcome, I guess.
Yeah, I think everyone at the company always laughs when I say this analogy because I use it a lot. But I talk about a cake. And I say that when we're speaking to brands, it was like there's a couple of brands that we've worked with who've had maybe 5 or 6 different types of agencies who all do pretty much the same thing. However, the agencies themselves don't really speak to each other. And I was like, it's just such a confusing process. If you've got your creative team who are like not speaking to your programmatic team, your advertising team, what is going on?
It makes no sense.
It doesn't. They need to be hand in hand so they can communicate, they can understand quickly and work on the fly. And the cake analogy that I always say is basically like, we're famous for creating content, right? And part of our excitement is we're very specific when we create content. We want to create content that is relatable, that it has a chance to potentially do something, cause an action or go viral. That's one of our favorites.
The dream.
Will ring us up and say, hey, can we go viral? But in terms of the cake, it's like, why would we want to create this cake? We create this cake. Why we want to hand it over to the brand so that then they can go and deliver it via another agency? We're like, no, we want to make sure this is freshly delivered. We care about the packaging. We care about the way it's delivered. And like, it's got to be a nice experience 360.
I really hope you now deliver cake to your clients in a very branded manner.
So you know what, you joke, but I think this is probably one of the favorite things about the agency. I think, as you can probably tell by the name of the fact that it's called Sweetshop, I've always loved things like Roald Dahl and Disney and like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I mean, it's just a cool story, isn't it? This whole idea of now, how can we break through and meet new clients? I mean, being called Sweetshop is quite handy because we are literally working on our kind of like, okay, cool. If we want to go out and speak to, let's just say, Lucozade Ribena Santori or someone like that, as an example, how can we get through to them? I know, let's go make a giant cake, a pink Lucozade bottle cake, and just deliver it to them. Do you know what I mean? It's fun.
It almost gives you that carte blanche to do what you want and get away with it, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
Which is a great way to be. I'm interested to know though, from how the transition was from you from working in a startup to running a startup and having that freedom to be able to just go, actually, yeah, why don't we make a giant Lucozade cake and deliver it to them by hand?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, when I was at Crowdmix, I was in such a fast-paced environment that I was having to learn everything on the fly. We were quite fortunate in the sense that when we raised a fairly sizable chunk of money, they brought in some amazing talent. So some of the people who worked for that company were unbelievable. And I just tried to absorb as much information from them as possible. We had one woman in particular who I absolutely loved, Elizabeth Riley, who was our head of HR. And I had never met anyone in HR before. And like, I was absolutely mind blown because to most people, she was either the most terrifying person in the company. And to me, she was the loveliest. I loved her. And she taught me so many processes and she taught me about understanding people and understanding how to build teams. And I loved it. It was really, really cool. I saw it as a great lesson and tried to learn information as quickly as possible. And then when I came out of Crowdmix and started my own company, I just tried to, like, I don't know, act upon all those lessons, I guess. It just came naturally.
What would Liz
I
do?
didn't really stop to think.
That's what you got to think.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You have that on the wall. That's it.
Well, it's true.
You know, and Sweetshop is just over, like we said, just over 3 years old. What have been some of the unexpected challenges for you over the last 3 years that you couldn't foresee, couldn't predict, but you handled and you overcame?
So I think probably the most relevant one right now is obviously COVID. I think I remember.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, exactly. There was a day I was out in LA at the time. Sorry, I think it cut out for a second.
You're back. You were out. You were out in LA.
Back.
There we go.
I was out in LA, and I remember I just got this call, and it was one of our clients, and it was about mid-March time, And the founder of this company rang me up and said, look, dude, I'm really sorry, but because of everything that's happening with COVID, we don't know what's going to happen, how it's going to affect the industry. I think we're going to have to pull back like our deal for a bit, just put things on ice for a little bit. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I get it. It's fine. It's all good. Just let me know when we can jump back on and kick things off. And then I got another call and then another one. And I had about 5 calls literally in a row that day. And I was like, what is going on? Like, is this literally the end of the world? Is this game over? And that was a serious big obstacle. I remember me, Jay, Dave, and Ross all jumped on a call and talked kind of battle plan. We're like, okay, cool. Well, let's look at the other clients that we've got. They should all be fine. This isn't really going to affect them too much. They're quite sustainable throughout this. It's mainly D2C stuff. We should be okay here. And we actually doubled down at that point because we got a phone call from one of our big clients, and they were just really impressed with the work that we were doing at the time. And April was an amazing month for them. We actually 11x their revenue in April. Wow. In the UK market. So they were blown away, and they actually increased our deal. And consequently, we actually doubled down on the team. We brought in a few smart people to help us out. We took a bit of a gamble and just rose to the challenge. So I think that was the first big scary thing to overcome. And then fast forward a few months now to lockdown 2.0, we're now having to do the exact same thing all over again.
Day one, lockdown 2.0.
Exactly. So I'm feeling it. It's got its ups and downs, and it's one crazy ride.
It is a crazy ride, and you know, it's funny because I've spoke to a few people this year, a few founders, and it has been one or the other. It's been either they've had that challenging conversation with clients, but then other opportunities have arisen and they've doubled down like you have, and you know, got through it and that kind of thing. Or they've gone the other way and they've sort of stepped back themselves and gone, actually, this is a great time for us as founders to reflect on the business as a whole. For you, do you think moving forward, obviously it's such an unknown matter in terms of this, but what are you going to change to make sure that the business itself is, I guess, is more secure and has, you know, that stability that you don't have to worry if you do get those 4 or 5 phone calls moving forward?
Yeah, no, it's a real good question. I think for us, what we've done is we've tried to diversify our clientele. We've started saying no to clients that we don't think are the right type of clients. And we've been really fussy about our processes. So making sure that we're not just, we would scramble quite a lot because quite a lot of our clients were in the music industry when we first started. And music industry is one of those notorious industries that our lastminute.com will ring you up and say, I've got a single release on Friday. Can we get artwork? Can we get an influencer campaign and everything all to go super viral for like,
for a very select budget?
Yeah, I was going to say. So,
but I'm guessing when you got those phone calls though, you were probably at that stage where you were like, yeah, let's do it. Let's run into it. And, you know, probably almost killed yourselves trying to deliver that, or when you did deliver that.
I couldn't put it any better myself. I think I am seeing people in the company who are getting scared even just thinking about those times.
They've got twitches now.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was quite scrappy. We would take what we could get in order to, when you're a new startup, you've got to prove yourself. There's so much choice out there, and you've got to really,
especially in an industry like yours.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we found it quite interesting. We've had some feedback from some clients recently. We just had a new potential client reach out to us, and she was just saying that she had been looking through on Google, just looking at a bunch of agencies, and she said that they all look quite samey. She said they all had the same sort of vibe. They all talked about the same things. And she said she went onto our website and she came across our branding, and she said it was just like pink. Everywhere was pink. And like we had all of these kind of like images, and like she said, you did a good job at actually building a brand as opposed to building an agency. So we took it as a huge compliment, and I take my hat off to Dave, our creative director, because I remember the first logo that we put up there, he was having heart palpitations at it. He was like, he'd come from electronic music background. working with some of the coolest DJs on the planet. And I remember his face when I showed him the first logo we were going to be using. And he's like, no. Just, no.
He's like, that's a straight veto.
Yeah, exactly. And that first bit of money that we actually spent on our branding, like, was the best bit of money we've ever spent in our entire time, I would say, because it's just given us a personality that people seem to remember.
That is one thing I think you've definitely created for Sweetshop. It has a personality. It has, I was going to say charisma, but I would actually say it's more ballsy. It's just like, this is who we are, this is what we do, and this is who we work with. I'm interested to know what you just said, though, in terms of like, you starting to say no to people. You're starting to say no to people that aren't going to be in that right fit for you. How powerful is that for you? Because this is something that I think there's even a book like The Power of No or something like that. The book, it's such a powerful thing for people to know. How do you think it's going to mean moving forward that, you know, working with more of the right people?
Yeah, I think we've learned our lessons. I would say when you work with a client who sounds amazing on paper, I can give you countless examples of times where we've worked with people who've had amazing products. Their products are so amazing that the founders or the CEOs of the companies are so in love with their own products that they can't think of anything else or anyone else. And the emotional intelligence of those individuals is so like draining because they can't think of anything else, and everything has to be
it's very like one track minded, not open to anything else.
Exactly. And we've worked with some individuals who have been, I think it's fair to say, a bit like control freaks and want things done in their way. And it's like, well, why bother hiring us if we are the experts at this? Why did you bother hiring us? You could have just done it yourself, sort of thing. And I think we haven't been afraid. Like, we obviously at the start took on a lot of those clients and had to learn those lessons, but now we can spot them a mile off. And when we spot them, like, we can just like hear sirens going off, and we can just see like late nights and phone calls from like clients who are needy, who don't really understand how it works. And we just say no to them now. It's like, look, you've got a great idea. We wish you the best of luck. Here's another couple of agencies that we would recommend, but it's not for us.
Just proves how much you guys have, you know, learned to value your own time just as much as the client's time, because, you know, you don't want to be having late nights working on things that aren't exciting for you or aren't, you know, passionate in your mind as well as the founders.
So like, one of my biggest mantras when I started this up was, it was actually based upon a comment that was said to me once in business. And I absolutely detest this comment. The comment was, it's not personal, it's just business. And I was like, that is an awful, like, no, it is 100% personal. It's not just business.
Exactly.
And when it came out of Crowdmix in particular, I wanted to immerse myself around smart people. Like, I didn't really want to just go out and build an agency. I wanted to be surrounded by smart people who had big ideas. Like, I love people who don't see like hierarchies. They don't see, oh, that's the CEO, you can't go and say hi to them. No, I don't care if you're an intern. I don't care who you are. Go and say hi to the big boss. Go and do it. It's like, the world is your oyster, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to be surrounded by people who were just hungry, wanted to do something cool. I wanted to connect some of the dots with some of the talent. I wanted to connect some of the dots with some of the brands. But fundamentally, it's the people at the end of the day that really make this enjoyable. Because if, like, the amount of messages that we get from friends, and I hear this from like some of the people who work here as well, they get messages being like, what even is your job? Like, you have gone from like being on a set with Sam Branson on a motorbike jumping into a lake from one day to the next day you are driving through central London in a pink Cadillac with a Trump lookalike. Like, what is going on? Like,
just another day at the office.
Casual, exactly. But,
one of my final questions to you is, over the last 3 years, what has been one of those pinch me moments? What have been one of those moments you look back on now and you can't quite believe it happened. I mean, those two moments straight away kind of sound a bit like pinch me, but I'm sure you've got many more.
Yeah, I think so. There's two that really stick out for me. The first one was when we were invited to pitch for one of our clients for Nokia Mobile. And for Nokia, I loved the brand. I remember
everyone had a 3210.
Exactly, literally. I think my dad's ringtone still haunts me to the day, around the house. But it's so nostalgic and it was so cool. And when we got invited to pitch for it, I was just excited. So we turned up for the pitch and there were quite a few other agencies going for it. And I will never forget how excited I was when we got invited back to the final stage of the tender process. They were like, right, there's you and there's two other agencies. And I knew some of the agencies were big agencies. So I remember I went to everyone, I was like, guys, just thank you, because as a team, I don't care if we win it or lose it. I now know that we are good enough to go up head to head with some of the biggest agencies on the planet, and they like our ideas. So you've already won. And then we ended up winning the client outright. And that was just like, what? It was amazing. It was such a good day. So I think that's definitely the first one that stuck out. And then I think secondly, there was a time when we actually got a message back from someone sent us a screenshot of an email that had been sent from Nokia Global. I think it was a really high level, basically. It was someone really high up saying that they absolutely loved some of the work that we're producing, being the best thing they'd seen in a long time. Wow. And I was like, let's just frame that email and just that's cool. I was just like, wow, we built that from nothing, literally nothing, no investment, just blood, sweat and tears, a lot of graft, and we're going somewhere.
For sure. And obviously based on hugely amazing values, because the people to people connection, the fun aspect, the whole brand itself, and you as a founder, it just shows that you guys are fully connected with your clients, and it is super refreshing, because there are so many brands out there now that miss that. They miss that connection. They miss I don't know whether it's they're not brave enough to be like pink everything, because that's a brave move.
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure what the missing link is, but it's so great to see that you have got that. You've got that edge.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's lovely. I think one thing that you said there is, I think it's the people. I think if you surround yourself with good people, no one wants to be the smartest person in the room, and that's why I think we started saying no to those founders who were the people in the room. It's like, no, get the people in, and then you're going to see the results. I think for us, we've had even when we've been hiring people, we've experimented with our hiring policies a number of times. We tried once using a recruitment agency, which was fine, but it didn't really feel very organic, didn't feel natural. And then as we've kind of progressed, we get quite a few people just hitting us up for jobs all the time. And we like that hustle. If someone's creative, I'll never forget, there's one person in particular who worked for us who got 3 people to recommend her to us. And I was just like, just get this girl in right now. Just get her in for an interview. This is hustle. This is great. And then there was another person who started working for us who I remember we were looking through these CVs, and we had a job out for a role, quite a senior role. And I had no idea why this person had really applied for it. And then I saw something in the CV that was just unbelievably hungry. It was basically referencing a famous marketeer called Tai Lopez. And he was basically referencing Tai Lopez's marketing course, and he said that during the first bit of lockdown, he started up his own drop shipping store, and then bought Tai Lopez's course and just became an absolute beast at programmatic advertising. And I was like, wow, get him in. I love that hustle. Come on.
Yeah.
That people, for sure.
People is truly the heart, and it's what that connection really means to other people as well. I think that there's a lot of brands and there's other companies out there now that have that disconnect, and the ones that have that connection of people and that human to human connection, you can always see that they just speak to people in a different way. I don't know what it is. Well, I do, but we don't have time to go into it. But it is that it is that real person to person connection. So I'm so glad you're doing that, Angus. And I guess my final question is how can people find out more about Sweetshop? How can people follow you and the other co-founders?
Yeah, sure. So our website is www.sweetshopmedia.com. So if you want to go on there and have a look at some of our crazy images that we've got up there, and our wall of pink, because we
The
like
Trump
to call
candle.
it. The Trump candle is yeah. So we've got a candle out which is called the Melt at the moment, which is doing really well. We're donating money, £5 from every candle to the ACLU charity. Again, we like to practice what we preach. So it's like, okay, cool. Like everything that we do, we want to do something that has a little bit of purpose to it. We're not afraid to work with clients that we believe in, and we believe that anything that we do should reflect that.
Amazing. Angus, thank you so much for coming on Founders 365. I love the story, and I am really looking forward to just watching you guys over the next 3 years, and I have no doubt you're going to be doing some very, very cool stuff.
Thank you very much, sir. It was a pleasure, and you're a legend. Cheers.
Thank you. Thanks everyone else for watching and listening. This has been Founders 365.